Okay, so then regarding the crypto conferences, I heard that it's better to actually like network with people that you already know after the event, such as like the bars and the different events outside of the crypto conferences. So a lot of people would probably want to go because they can, hey, I can meet new people and network, but in reality, you're just meeting up with the people that you already know. Is that true?
That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. And there are usually side events as well after the conference. A lot of those side events usually mean like dinners, have some beers, wine, whatever, with people from the event. And you usually have to pre-register for those before, because a lot of people, what they do is they end up going there and they're like, "Can I get in?" And you're like, "Were you pre-registered?" No, then sorry, we can't let you in. So it's usually it feels like a private conference, like a private event, but it's not really that. I mean, if you would have registered, you could have accessed it. So what they do there is usually people communicate and talk about projects, and some partnerships tend to form there as well, because that's where you get to really talk to the people, over a beer, over a coffee, over a pizza. We've had that before with founders. So that's where people usually build connections and contacts, and things are happening. And yeah, I mean, that's how things are. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it would be nice if you could talk to other people outside of the ecosystem. And then at the same time, I can say that there usually are some people outside of the ecosystem that just are curious to learn about that, like yourself, and they just join those conferences and they just try to make contacts there and learn how things are working, and who's partnered with who does what are they planning, things like that. So those are good opportunities to get to learn the ecosystem as well, for sure.
All right, we
I,
can go
I've
to
got a
the
question for you now. So let's talk about content creation. I mean, a lot of people, usually the audience knows about this as well, because they usually tend to watch a lot of content creators. I'm not the only one they watch, obviously. It would be very rare to have a person only watching my channel. So obviously, they watch multiple channels. And a lot of people
unloyal,
have heard about
unfaithful.
sorry, say that again.
I said unloyal and unfaithful. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, you
No,
want
no.
multiple sources.
No, but like usually everyone hears of Coin Bureau, BitBoy, for example, right? Chico Crypto, they're like the three largest channels, I would say. So, I
Mhm.
mean, from your perspective, like if you were an investor and you're curious to learn about crypto, I mean, which channels would you be watching for educational content yourself, and how have you found that to be like when it comes to watching other YouTubers?
Interesting. I think what needs to happen is you just need to go through the whole process. So I think what typically happens is you're new to the space, you have no idea. So then you go to the biggest views and numbers because it's entertaining, right? But then you feel like you get a little bit of information. So you're entertained and you feel like you're being educated. I
Yeah.
think as time progresses, you realize that perhaps there are more, how to say it, higher quality content that provides more value, more content, but likewise, they're not as popular. So then what you do is you probably shift towards perhaps a certain ecosystem that you really enjoy, that you want to learn more about, that is more specified in that. So for example, when it comes to the dot ecosystem, people know that Cryptos chain, Claudio, you are like the go-to person, right? And then they know. And then in addition, you can get a sense as to who is genuine, authentic, and who, like, if there's some other shadiness going on. You can kind of sniff it out, maybe not at the beginning, but eventually you're like, you just promoted banana, butt coin, moon coin going up. And yeah, that had no future. I don't know if I really want to follow along, but then there's, let's say, somebody else that comes along and says, this is very innovative, great tech, new team, maybe be cautious, but here's what I picked up on. I think this may be worth taking a look. I found it interesting. I'll provide a little bit of extra knowledge for you, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. I think that has a lot more authenticity. It's more genuine, and you feel like you can connect with that person more. And the cool benefit is that if they have a smaller audience, there's a greater chance that you can actually message them, DM them, reply in the comments. If somebody has a channel that's like 1 million, do you really think that they're going to respond to you and really want to like focus and chat, etc.? But the cool benefit is when they're a lower channel, you have much greater access to connect with them, talk to them, and really pick their mind. You can provide value to them, and likewise, they can provide value back. So, for example, you have that whole network with the people, the community, the projects, etc. So somebody's like, dude, Claudio, I really want to know more about, let's say, Big Country, right? I kind of saw this, but can you just
You,
give
you saw
me,
my you saw my hoodie, I guess, and that's why you wanted to say that.
well, I know that you also mentioned it as one of your three projects that you're looking
Yeah.
at and that you like to research, etc. So if somebody's like looking at that, like, yeah, I'm kind of curious, or I would want to do a partnership with the team, whatever, can you give me some info and tell me the more behind the scenes? Dude, that's already a major perk, right? And you're
Yeah.
not going to get that with, let's say, a ultra large channel, and everybody's watching it as well. Because if they're projecting all the information about, like, okay, this project, this token, and it's low on the list, dude, and everybody's watching it, that can pump that stuff out of the water. Not because the people truly believe in the project, they see value. They just know, oh, see, he mentioned that. So chances are other people are going to follow it. So it's the trend. So I'm going to get in, and then you get the pumps and the dumps, and then
Yeah.
that's also
That's the
another.
sad thing. I mean, what do you think about these pumps and dump schemes? Because they've been happening in the first bull market back in 2017, and then they continued happening again in 2021. So I mean, what's your take on that? And
I would like to say that some of it is inevitable. Thanos, it's inevitable because I think some people they do realize that these are pump and dumps, but they're trying to time it and profit off of it, similar to a casino.
yeah,
Which, from that perspective, ironically, I'm okay with. I don't necessarily want to participate, but I like the idea that it's freedom. You can do what you want. If you want to try and play that, go for it. Have fun. I wish you the best of luck, right? I take on a different perspective on what I want to do, but I like the fact that there are options. What I don't like is when there's some shady stuff going on and people that don't have the information get taken advantage of. So, for example, if there is a channel and somebody gets paid by this pump and dump project that is just purely going to be a rug pull, and they say, okay, we'll pay you a good portion of money, just promote this blindly, just do it. And they go on and they say, okay, this is, the challenge just goes on and says, this is the best thing ever, pump up the price. And then the developers take out that funds and still essentially take out everybody's money. That I don't, that I'm against, but that's a whole complicated situation then in terms of regulation and whatnot, and that goes down a trickier path. So right now, I think it just becomes you get burned enough, and then you become smarter, and maybe that's just the path that it needs to go down. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. I think people should try to stay away from those as much as possible. But I know there will always be people who want to ride those, just like you said, because of the popular YouTuber doing it, and because they'll think other people will follow even if they don't. But then we can go back to that because we do know that there is a network behind this whole thing at the end of the day. I mean, the project usually pays the bigger YouTuber, and then they usually don't only pay them, but they pay other YouTubers. And they'll usually try to synchronize a release of the video across the different YouTubers. And so
Mm-hmm.
what they'll do is they'll use that as a maneuver to promote to multiple people at the same time to create a lot of engagement, obviously to pump the price, and then to eventually offload on the retail who will end up buying because of that. So I mean, we've seen that in this space many times. They don't really happen now because the market is how it is. But in 2017, it has happened because I have been caught buying into something like that, and then it just dumped on me straight away. Also, the issue was the snapshots, the airdrops with the snapshots. I don't know if you're aware. So sometimes projects will announce a snapshot because they'll give you a free airdrop. And so what they'll do is people just pump the price a lot, and you end up buying maybe around the top. If you don't know, if you're new, right, and you see the price go up, you think it's going to continue to go up. You buy there, and then it ends up dumping right after the snapshot as people are just selling on you, and you end up getting a bunch of useless airdrop tokens most of the time. And
Mm.
so that's why people have to be really careful when they see the price of something go up too much. Stay away, just yeah, you lost that, man. Just move on to the next thing. If you're gonna chase that, and if you don't care about the tech, just stay away from it and just think about something else. Don't get screwed, by the system.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
what's your take? I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the private investments? So some content creators do get allocations in private investments, and some of them don't disclose them on their channels. Obviously, I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to cause problems for anyone,
Right.
but we know this definitely happens. Okay, it's a given.
Mhm.
So what do you think about that bit? I mean, do you think that's seen as something dodgy? Should they disclose those investments? Or should they just talk about the project as if, they really believe in it, hence why
I
they've invested? Or how do you see that? Do you see that like different from being sponsored by a project directly? Or how would you treat that yourself from
So are you saying like let's say you invest in a project on your own,
the
like you
private sales stage?
at the private sales stage, so it's not
Yeah,
even open to the public?
correct. Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, I would say that's kind of the private sales stage, that's what probably a hidden benefit or hidden advantage, right? Because it wasn't public, right? Because you got in and then you kind of got like a little head start, and then later on you're talking about it. So I would say ethically, I always try to stay on the side of ethically as much as I can, right? So even in this video we were discussing, I said, hey, I'm invested in these projects myself. I'm not looking to pump, I'm not looking to do anything. It's just if you like a project, it makes sense that you're wanting to invest into it, right? I just say, this is what I find is interesting. I like it. Take a look at it. I really don't care if anybody buys into it or not. Like that, I'm not a financial advisor, not giving financial advice. I'm not even
No,
caring
no,
about
but
the
what I'm
price.
saying is by saying this is interesting, you are ultimately promoting it. Just not telling, obviously, you're not telling people to buy it, but you're saying,
Right.
look, this is what I've invested in. This looks really cool. I'm going to show you how it works, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to show you what they're doing or what they're trying to do. So that's
Right.
what I meant by promo. Obviously, not shill promo because that's
Okay.
different. We're talking
That,
about
yeah.
educational promo here.
Educational, right? And it could be like, I don't really care if anybody gets into it, but the fact of where you say, dude, take a look at this tech, look at what they're doing, because we all know that in code you can fork it, meaning you can just copy, you can do whatever, right? So that's how trends happen, and a lot of projects adapt it, and that becomes the new standard in a sense, right? Like locking and all that type of stuff. So being able to say like, hey, this is actually coming up, this is really cool, just even sharing that knowledge of what one project is doing, that kind of keeps a, how to say, it does educate you and help you out. But circling back to if you were to able to get into a private sale and then go on the channel and like promote it, talk about it, yeah, I definitely think that that's shady. I wouldn't like it. So hopefully what I would say is that the content creators, you're able to get a feel of who's genuine, who's authentic, and who's ethical, and the ones that are maybe a little bit more questionable. And hopefully the audience votes for who is good, who is not by their views, their likes, and their subscribes. I feel like it's very challenging because we're so new, there's going to be a funnel of new users that are going to go for the most popular, and
Yeah.
that's just the default. And eventually they get to the more of the educational side rather than just the hype and the entertainment. But then I would say, what are your thoughts on that? And likewise, is there a way to fix that? Perhaps as opposed to content creators feeling the need that they need to hype and pump up tokens in order to accrue as much money and be in the space full time, is there more of a financial way for them to provide educational content and also be ethical?
Yeah, absolutely. But the disadvantage with that, I would say, and this is why you're seeing a few popular YouTubers consistently promote in the same way with the
Mm-hmm.
same style, is mostly because of the VCs behind them. I mean, a lot of these VCs are really powerful. They've got links to exchanges, and they know that they can get these coins listed on popular exchanges. And what usually happens is they'll promote, like I said to you, they'll organize group promotions. And then that token or coin will usually end up getting listed on a big exchange as well. I'm not talking about like the low caps. I'm talking about more decent projects, larger ones, right? Which are not yet listed on something like Binance, for example, but could get listed there. And
Yeah.
so you could see something like that happening there. And, obviously they didn't disclose that they had been invested in the private sale, which can be a red flag. Some of them do, which is good, right? But I mean, that's how it should be. But sometimes they won't, and that's something that we have to put up with. And I just don't know if we can. I mean, even the only thing that you can do I'm talking from a retail perspective point of view, is you can either ignore them because they're always going to be there. I don't think you can ever get rid of this kind of people, and you can just try to see if you can find those educators who are pretty obvious that they're educators and they're not trying to show you something. I think people that do a lot of interviews usually tend to be geared more towards the education side, but also be careful because you can see a lot of interviews that are geared towards promoting a specific project because they've been sponsored by that project. So you
Mm.
got to be really careful at the type of interviews as well, I think, because you can get a feel normally if the interview is legit or not. Like I know one guy, He's not doing any more videos for now. Hopefully he'll be back. He goes by the name of Blockchain Brad. He used to be in this space back in 2017. That's when he started. And he used to do a lot of interviews with CEOs, founders, and none of his videos were sponsored. And so he was always unbiased. I mean, he was always very upfront. He was reading the white papers, which takes a long time, without
Mhm.
receiving any money, which is amazing. And you don't really find people like that nowadays. But that was his style. And because of that, because I found out about this guy, I used to watch his videos before investing myself, just because I knew that he was unbiased, because of the hard questions he was asking, so I could get a feel from those questions and from the team's responses if that's a good project or not. Of course, things could go bust, right? Even from that, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it gives you a better idea of what to expect when you see people ask so many hard questions, questions that maybe you didn't even think about asking. And you're
Mm.
like, wow, that's interesting. Okay, so the team is thinking to do that, or that's a red flag. The team member didn't answer that question, or try to dodge the answer. So I mean, having these kind of interviewers, I think, is really good, and we need more of these. But unfortunately, they're very, very hard to find. It's like trying to find that gem cryptocurrency who's going to do really well, both from a tech perspective and from a price perspective.
Hmm.
Trying to tackle that, trying to pinpoint it and trust it, is very hard. And it's the same with educators in the space. So.
That's a good point. I haven't really thought about that. Now, do you think a lot of the interviewers that do get sponsored, do they on the YouTube channel, they have to put on like paid promotion sponsorship, right?
They do, yeah, yeah.
So
I
do you
mean, they
think that
should. They should. Yeah, they
oh,
should. But
absolutely.
I think it
You think they
depends on
do
the
that?
country they live in. If you're in the US, you have to do it, because otherwise you pay like a 10K fine if they ever find out if the person who sponsored you, or if a team member from there ends up going rogue and says, I know the team paid this dude, let me mess with him, and they could just report you.
I
Because
agree.
they've got the proof, because they're part of the team. They could say, look, this guy has been sponsored, he hasn't disclosed, and you can get fined because of that. So in the US, at
Mm.
least. In other
Mm.
countries, it's not really applicable, so people tend to dodge it because of that. I'm in Spain. I mean, over here we don't have to do it apparently, but I still do it. Like, I'm always trying to be transparent with my community, and they know that. So that's one of the things, one of the reasons they appreciate this channel as well. But that's what I'm trying to get to. Like, I'm trying to say here that it's very hard to find people who are genuine, and who don't promote something for the purpose of pumping their bags. Like, I had no problems on this channel to badmouth projects of whose coins actually happen to hold. When I mean by bad mouthing them is because they've done something wrong throughout the project, which I wasn't happy with. And I have mentioned it. And even if I held the bag, I hadn't sold it yet. I said what I said. It's like, look, I'm not happy with what they're doing, and I'm sure people had happened to sell, when they saw the video. But what can you do? Sometimes it's better to just be real than to be fake.
Do you
Yeah.
think it's better to sell your bag because you said like, okay, the project they did something that you didn't like, and you're like, hey, I'm selling, and then maybe wait a little bit of time and then state like, hey, I sold off. Here's my reasons why. This is why I didn't like doing it. Or do you feel like you have the responsibility and the duty to put out the video first and say, hey, I didn't like what this happened here, 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 and as a result, I'm questioning whether to sell or do something like that.
Yeah, that's more what I'm doing. It's the second part. I don't usually sell it and then just do the video. I actually mention what they've done, and I'm not happy with it. And so I'm not gonna say I'm thinking to sell the bag, because maybe I don't even know if I should sell the bag, but I just don't like what they're doing right now. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
usually wait for a while and see what happens. And then if I see things are continuing to be bad, then I'll usually say, yeah, look, I'm just gonna sell the bag. And I may get hate, but what can you do? I mean, you can't. It's your decision at the end of the day. You're just the guy putting out the content, and you're already being transparent to your community, but you can't be responsible for their financial decisions at the end of the day. I mean, this is your stuff, and this is the reason why you've said, look, I've invested in this because I believed it, because of this and this and that. Now I no longer believe in their vision. I think they're swaying off their vision, because I've seen, like, while I was doing videos in 2018 and 2019, I have seen projects jumping from one specific trend to another trend,
Mm-hmm.
trend jumping. And you'll get a lot of those, unfortunately. And sometimes you can believe in them doing something good, but then if you see them trend jumping, you realize that, okay, these guys are not serious about their vision. I'm not going to hold on to this anymore. So
Do you ever get concerned that you may not have all the information and then you're saying, okay, I'm being very critical, and then say something a little bit too harsh and then it can come back to bite you? Because for me, I like to see good projects and do the stuff. But at the same time, if I'm going to criticize a project or criticize a person, I don't necessarily know the legalities of it. And that can cause a lot of damage, right? Because it's like defamation, uh, basically where you can say something negative about somebody and it has a negative impact and perhaps it wasn't true and that they can come after you. Do you ever have concerns about that, or do you just do your research so much that you know the space, you're confident what you're saying, and you're just saying, this is my opinion, this is how I see it, etc., and then you feel good?
Yeah, that's the way I do it. I mean, I usually do that, but of course I can get bitten as well. I mean, it has happened to me in the past where I thought something about a project and it ended up not being that, and I was wrong. And I'm happy to say I was wrong, but I haven't had any legal issues yet, thankfully,
Knock on
because
wood,
of
right?
that. But yeah, that's actually a good point. I never actually thought about that, but I'm assuming that if you are saying something negative about a project, especially being the largest channel in the ecosystem, and people see that and people would act on that because they'll say, okay, if this guy who has been looking at this project for so close is saying this and he no longer believes in it, then I'm just going to get out of this. I'm just going to sell. And then that'll have a negative impact on the price, which then in turn the team will obviously see that. The team will likely know that you've done a video, and then they'll come back to you and they'll be like, this guy has spread so much crap about us, we're going to start with a legal case. I mean, I haven't come across that myself, but I have seen content creators not get sued by projects, but I've seen content creators sue other content creators for defamation.
Huh.
So it's weird. I've yet to see a project actually do that to a content creator. I'm not sure why they don't do it. Maybe because it's more costly than what actually happened based off that video. I'm not sure, but
Mm. Or
yeah.
maybe it's the whole concept of a security or whatever it may be. It's like, all right, well, if it were to be a secure, I'm not sure. I'm not going down that path at
Yeah.
all. But
Yeah.
okay,
No,
so
no, but
then,
not about the security. It's more about, like, say, for example, you've heard about something negative from the team. Like, for example, a team member is all of a sudden blocking people on Twitter for raising concerns about a technical issue, and you're
mhm.
reporting that they're censoring people, and then they'll come back and sue you because you've done a negative video against them. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I mean, do you reckon that's something that they could actually do, or when you've got the obvious proof there right in front of you that they've censored people?
I mean, it's a slippery slope. I tend to be so detail oriented. I always give the benefit of the doubt that I made a mistake. There are certain people that are very confident. They know exactly what they're doing. They see the big picture and they say, this is what's happening. I'm on the other side. I'm so detail oriented. I'm like, I could easily make a mistake and I don't want to state something unless I'm really confident, right?
Mm.
So I always err on the side of caution in that regard. But what I would think is, okay, have you ever thought about before making a video and you have some concerns, actually reach out to the project ahead of time and say, guys, I'm not really a fan of what's happening here, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any chance that you can change it, or in the future you will be changing it, as opposed to just going on camera and putting on full blast?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I have done it a few times, but most of the times I just go on camera as soon as I find out about it and I go full blast. Like, I'm kind of like that. I've got the degen way of acting sometimes. And I guess the audience seem to be okay with that, but you'll always get some people that will be obviously the holders of that specific coin will usually be the ones that are bigger bag holders will usually be very much against it and will start bashing me straight away. It's like, hey, you shouldn't have said that, that's not cool, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, you can't really help it sometimes, right? But I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. I mean, if you could find that point where you could just reach out to the team before, make sure that you get a response. And if you can't get a response, then go on camera and say, look, I've tried to reach out. They haven't responded to me. This is what I'm not happy with. That's another option as well. But yeah, most of the time it's going on camera.
It's happening. It's going
Yeah,
down. It's funny.
yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that with content creation, what about from like the financial aspect, right? Because I think that a lot of the pump and dumps and the VCs, et cetera, that you mentioned is connected where the content creators want to make some money. And I'm sure if they were to do interviews and be unbiased and then they would get compensated very well, that they would do so. But as a result, they go down a path of least resistance, trying to get the money as quickly as possible. Do you see a solution as to how, as you said, with, I think you said blockchain Brad, in his situation, that he could receive like a lot of great financial incentives to continue doing the work that he's doing by interviewing projects unbiasedly?
Yeah, I mean, the only way I could see that happening is if a treasury was to pay him, because some ecosystems have treasury funding, like Polkadot, for example. I believe Cosmos, yeah, Cosmos also has one. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you could use the treasury funding, if you could reach out to the right people to get that treasury fund approved, then I think that could really pay off for people like that. And I think you'd have more educators that way because they'll have financial incentive to continue working. They'd have money to put food on the table, not get rich off it, but they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have to be forced into leaving the space because they are not getting any income, yet they're educating, and at the same time, they're promoting those projects. Even if they're not directly they're indirectly promoting them because they've got the CEO on and the CEO talks about the project and some people will just go and buy it. I mean, I've had that happen to me even with the ones where I said, this is a sponsored video. I don't hold anything. So yeah, there's a fine line there as well. I think you got to find that point where, okay, you are receiving some income to stay in the space and continue educating people, but at the same time, then the community could go back and say, well, you're fully funded by Polkadot or by Cosmos, and you're only interviewing people in this space because you're funded by them. So I mean, you're kind of biased in a way, right? That's what they could go back and say. You're kind of biased because, I mean, will you still be asking the same hard questions, or will you be different now because you're being sponsored by the ecosystem? I mean, you have to talk with the people who are actually paying you from that treasury and explain to them, this is who I am, this is what I do. I'm always transparent with my audience. What are you going to do? Are you going to continue paying me to talk about the good and the bad, or are you going to only pay me to talk about the good? Because if they accept both sides, that's perfect. That's the place where you want to be as an educator, I think.
Do you think that the audience would prefer and still reward, in the sense of viewership and likes and subscribes, all that, for content creators that do interview the projects and try to be as unbiased as possible and give the good and the bad? Or do you think that the audience, whether they realize it or not, tends to always focus on more of the hopium, the good side, etc.?
I think not everyone thinks the same, just as every person's different. So I think you're going to get a bigger camp of people supporting the hypers, unfortunately. And hence why you're seeing so many views on some of those channels, where the ones where they've got those thumbnails with 100x,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to the moon, etc. And unfortunately, the numbers don't lie. And it's pretty much shown there and in the comments and everywhere. Whereas the people that are looking for real educators are definitely come in smaller numbers. So the question is, I mean, will those people who are hype driven be bored of the educators and will not want to hear anything from them? That's the question you got to ask yourself. So,
Well, another question I'd bring up then is, let's say people get in because of the hype. That's
yeah,
very short term, a short term that people are in the project, right? And then they
yeah,
can always jump out. But I would say that probably the smarter investors, if they know why they're in it, they ask the good and the bad, they understand the risk. Once they make a decision, they're more likely to stay in as a result. So then you have less volatility bouncing around, and that would probably be most beneficial for the project and the ecosystem, right? You want the people that are intelligent, know what they're doing, have the conviction, balanced out the good and the bad, even though there's fewer of those type of people.
yeah. But then the question comes, are those people making enough investments to keep the project sustained? Because, I mean, you got to look from the team's perspective. I mean, the team want to make money as well. At the end of the day, they've got team coins, team tokens that they need to get. And obviously they'll be happy if they have a serious community, not one that complains about the price, right? But
Mm-hmm.
who's really buying it? Like, I mean, if you're only getting a handful of people who are buying it and the price isn't doing great, and how long is that project sustainable for? Because they've only got funds for like 2 to 3 years when it comes to VC funding. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you're seeing a lot of these projects support the hype driven content creators, because they're price movers ultimately. And because they're price movers, they bring new people in who are also attracted to the price, and then the teams can live a good life from those unlocks, that they're getting from the team tokens, and also the marketing allocation and so on, and even treasury funds. I mean, a lot of them are getting treasury funds. They're building like a treasury pool, and because a certain percentage maybe of the transaction fees would go into that treasury pool, and then they're growing that pool, and then they've got access to that pool, so they can always sell that to continue to fund the project development. So they obviously care about price as well. There's no doubt in my mind that there's a team out there that says, yeah, we don't care about price. They'll definitely do. If they have a token or a coin, they'll definitely care about price. They're not legally allowed to say they care about price, because their lawyers tell them, look, you can't talk about price on your channel, because if something goes down and an angry investor sues us, you'll have to pay a huge fine. So that's why you're seeing, if you join some Telegram groups, they'll say, yeah, we don't talk about price. Please go to the unofficial group, blah, 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 So that's one of the reasons. So yeah, deep down, the teams do care about price, but they're just not legally allowed to talk about it. So
No,
you
I
get
didn't
both
know that.
sides of the coin, but you'll always have teams that care about the community, and they want to get a healthy community in place, So we can't say 100% of the teams out there are only care about price, but quite a lot of them do, unfortunately. So yeah.
And that also is a tricky situation, right? Because you want teams that focus on tech, have a great community, but then also financially, how do they stay afloat? How do they keep moving forward, et cetera? So we're talking about content creators, how they can stay in the space, be financially stable to do what they want to do and not go towards the path of just hype. But it
Yeah,
sounds like projects also have that same dilemma based on
correct.
what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah, it's a very tricky place to be in. I mean, you have to find a balance which isn't geared towards the shill path, but more towards the education path. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's very hard to be 100% right about things and spot on everything. You'll always get that. You know.
So, so then moving forward, Claudia, what would be your recommendation or your thoughts for the audience in terms of this bear market? What would you have as a message for them? Because it's really challenging. It's tough, right? To have the conviction to not only be in the space, but then continue learning, watching the videos, absorbing the content, doing their own research when, portfolio is down 90%, not a lot of hype in the industry right now. What would be your suggestion to the audience to really progress and come out ahead in the following years?
Yeah, I mean, they just need to be patient. They need to look at development activity. They need to check progress. I mean, development activity and progress, they go hand in hand with the project. And even if you're not a developer and you don't understand GitHub, I mean, you can take a look at GitHub and just see how many code commits have they done, because each code commit represents some change. It means that they're doing something, right? You may not understand what they're actually doing, but at least you can see they're doing something. They're not sleeping. So I think teams that are, actively updating us on their progress, teams that are actively pushing code changes out there, are ones that you could trust. But you also have to look at tokenomics. I have said on my channel many times, tokenomics play a very important role for us as investors, because you have to check when the private investors get those unlocks. Because you can believe in the future or in the vision of a project all you want, but if you're going to get wrecked another 90% because of those aggressive unlocks and allocations that the private investors are due to get, and what good does it do? It's only going to play back with your emotions. It'll go back to the point that I was mentioning earlier about emotions, being human. I mean, how much longer can you resist seeing your portfolio go down another 90% because you made that wrong choice, entering at the wrong moment when those private investors are getting their unlocks and pushing in maybe another 30 to 40% of the coins in circulation? Because that's a very harsh reality that does happen. So that's why I tend to tell people to look at the ratio, right? What's in circulation? What's the total supply? What's the unlock schedule? If there's no unlock schedule, it's not good. Try to get it from the team, and if they don't tell you, then it's probably a red flag. So most teams are usually transparent about the unlock schedules, which is great, but some of them aren't, and so you should probably stay away from those for your own sake and for your own health, at the end of the day. So yeah. But what's your take on it, by the way? Like, what do you think from that aspect?
From my
Especially the
aspect,
tokenomics, like.
For my aspect, I just maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I look at my portfolio and I say, okay, I'm holding what I got. I like it. It is what it is. And everything else I'm just ran off to zero. So I did take some time off. I wanted to make sure that I was good financially, healthy myself, because I was doing too much degenning, and I accept responsibility on that. Took some time off, saved some funds up, and now I'm coming into it as, yeah, everything's zero. But if things go back to even close to what they were before, oh my goodness, that is a prime opportunity. So, number one, how can I make more of an income in general so that I can purchase what I want to? Number two, can I put in the time energy when there's not a lot of noise, not a lot of hype, and then focus on the projects that I really want? So when the time comes, whenever the time comes, I want to jump in and scoop up all the great projects, I'm prepared.
Yeah.
And that is how I see it. So on one side, it really does suck because a lot of the portfolio is down a lot. But if I come out clean, fresh, and say, all right, I'm going to start again, and this time I can do it right, I can definitely come out ahead, then that's what really motivates me right now.
Interesting. But I know you told me before that you try to focus on the low caps. So I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
ask you now, are you not worried that a lot of those low caps will run out of funding if this bear market lasts for another 2 years, and then they'll go bust, and then you'll end up losing a lot of that portfolio share because you hold most of your investments in those low caps? Are you not concerned about that,
I mean
rather
that
than
that that
focusing
is a
on
huge
the larger market cap ecosystems? Like,
that is a huge concern. So I'd say maybe in the short term, I'll get more of the tried and true one that I have conviction that will last out, because obviously it will benefit in a bull run, right?
yeah,
But then likewise, once I see that the trend does change to a bull market, I don't have to do research anymore for the low caps. I can
yeah,
just put a little bit, make sure I manage risk, be all good with that, understand that yeah, it could unfortunately go bust, but at the same time, the longer that is getting dragged out in this bear market, I can have the opportunity to say, hey, what's your runway like? And it's getting chipped away. And you can, as you said, with the GitHub, etc., are they making the changes? Are they still
yeah,
keeping up with the community, etc.? Because if they make it on the other side, then that's a really cool thing.
yeah,
And that is really beneficial. So on one side, it is concerning to see some of the projects that you're really loving kind of suffer but get tested. But if it can make it out on the other side, then that is really exciting. And you don't want to be putting in hours and trying to sift through all the noise
yeah.
when the bull run returns. You want to be prepared and be like, oh, this one was on my radar. This has been on my Christmas list. I'm going to pick this
Yeah.
bad boy up. Okay, don't pick it up necessarily on Christmas, but you get the gist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Mark, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciated this chat. This is going to be in two different parts. So you'll see two different videos because it is quite long. We'll talk about one on the Phantom side, one about crypto investments and crypto, the space in general. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Mark, for being here. Make sure to check out Mark. Channel can be found in the description and pinned comment.